Coming up on Tech News Today, Yahoo gets sporty with NBC, Steam making hardware, and is Apple TV getting apps? It's an happy Christmas next on Tech News Today.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Monday, the 10th of December, 2012. Tech News Today is brought to you by GoToAssist by Citrix. Take control of your IT world from one simple cloud-based platform. Provide live or unattended support to all your users from anywhere. Sign up for your 30-day free trial today. Visit GoToAssist.com and use promo code TNT. And by Squarespace, the fast and easy way to create a high-quality website, blog, or online portfolio. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase on new accounts, go to squarespace.com and use offer code TNT12. And they recently launched a developer platform for complete code control. And by Lantronix, maker of the Xprint server. Print from your iPad, iPhone, or any iOS device to virtually any printer. For more information, visit xprintserver.com/twit and enter the code HOLIDAY2012 to receive 20% off on your order. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
And I'm Jason Howell.
And this is the show where we keep you up to date on the most important stories in the tech world, starting each time with the top 10 stories of the day in the news fuse. There it is. Infused. Local police have been called to assist distressed motorists who have become stranded within the Murray Sunset National Park after following directions from their Apple iPhone. This according to the Madura Police Department in Australia. Some motorists went without food or water for up to 24 hours in the park, where temperatures can reach 110 degrees Fahrenheit in some areas. Apple Maps listed Madura incorrectly in the middle of the park, 70 kilometers away from its actual location.
Samsung released a couple of videos showing some new features coming to its Galaxy S3 phones. Samsung's calling the software update the Premium Suite, and it brings lots of features, including Facebook's news feed on your lock screen, a multi-window feature so you can see two apps at one time, some new camera functionality as well. PC World says the software update will be available sometime during the second week of January.
Google's closer to selling the Motorola Home business, which sells set-top boxes to cable TV providers. Eris Group and Pace have made the most compelling bids, according to people talking to Bloomberg. Both prospective bidders currently make set-top boxes themselves.
Good news for Helsinki. Huawei announced that it will open a research and development center in Helsinki next year. The company will invest about $90 million, and the R&D arm will work on smartphone development. Huawei said it will employ 30 people when the R&D center opens, but that could grow to 100 over the next 5 years.
You know what, Huawei? Go to Helsinki and open a new factory. That sounds like a good idea. Iran has launched a video sharing site called Mehr, M-E-H-R, which focuses on Persian-speaking users and promoting Iranian culture. Iran has blocked YouTube since 2009 and earlier this year began blocking Gmail and Google Search. They announced in September, Iran did, that it is working on a domestic internet network to improve cybersecurity.
Well, it's official. All Things D reports Instagram has completely turned off support for Twitter cards on Sunday. Instagram first turned it off last Wednesday. So what does that mean in the real world for you? When you click on an Instagram picture in Twitter, you'll be taken out of Twitter to another page on the internet instead of being in Twitter. It's the end of the civilized world as we know it.
And I feel fine. Tech Week Europe reports China, Russia, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and other countries have withdrawn controversial proposals at the ITU's World Conference. The proposals asked for more powers given to local governments over web laws and infrastructure management like DNS. An ITU spokesperson told Tech Week Europe the proposals were off the table now. The U.S. and Europe are leading a push to leave the internet out of discussions to update the 1988 Treaty on World Telecommunications.
Let's take a look at the patent world. Bloomberg reports that a new consortium is bidding over $500 million to obtain Kodak's imaging patents. Oh yeah, that consortium includes Google and Apple. Now the two were in competing groups vying for Kodak's patents, but are now pooling their resources. In other patent news, Facebook, Google, and 6 other companies filed an amicus brief arguing that, quote, abstract patents are a plague in the tech sector, and say that granting patent protection for abstract claims impairs innovation by giving protection to those who have not meaningfully innovated.
IBM announced Sunday a breakthrough in silicon nanophotonics chips that use silicon and laser light to move data at extremely high speeds. The IBM process combines optical and electrical circuits on the same chip. IBM said it could fabricate the chips in existing foundries. Solomon Asefa, nanophotonics scientist for IBM Research, will present on the 90-nanometer chip at the IEEE International Electronic Devices meeting this week in San Francisco.
All right, passwords are even now weaker. Jeremy Gosney showed off a password cracking machine that uses 25 AMD Radeon graphics cards to cycle through as many as 350 billion passcode guesses per second. That's fast enough to guess every possible Windows password in the typical enterprise in less than 6 hours. The machine uses 5 servers running the virtual OpenCL cluster platform with OCL Hashcat Plus to crack the passwords.
Good stuff. Very efficient. Maybe they can use nanophotonic processors to speed that up even more. This episode of Tech News Today brought to you by Citrix. Working in IT means constantly jumping from one problem to the next. Each issue it needs to be solved fast. Every minute counts. It's stressful. You don't want to waste time juggling a bunch of different tools, duplicating data entry. That's why you can use GoToAssist from Citrix, the leader in remote support. You'll have the tools you need integrated into one easy-to-use platform so you can work faster and more efficiently. GoToAssist includes 3 essential support tools that you can customize for your needs. Here's what you get. GoToAssist Service Desk. That allows you to log incidents and track the resolutions, basic stuff that you need. GoToAssist Monitoring. This is the thing that makes you look like a genius because it proactively identifies issues like randomizer playing in the middle of your ad before it becomes a problem and allows you to fix it. And remote support. Provide live or unattended support to any PC, Mac, or mobile device from anywhere to resolve the issues quickly. So you find out the problems, you prevent problems before they happen, and you don't even have to leave your chair to fix the stuff. We use it right here at TWiT. Russell uses it. Leo uses it. You don't even have to roll out of bed if you need to reboot a server. So sign up for your special 30-day free trial today. Visit gotoassist.com, click on the Try It Free button, and use the promo code TNT. That's gotoassist.com, promo code TNT. And we thank Citrix and GoToAssist for their support of Tech News Today. All right, let's bring in Jonathan Strickland from HowStuffWorks.com, host of the Tech Stuff podcast, to join us. Welcome back to the show, Jonathan.
Thanks, Tom. It's a pleasure to be here.
You know, you didn't have to wear a Sword and Laser t-shirt just to be on the show. It's not a requirement or anything.
Your email made it seem otherwise, Tom.
Did I send that email? It was
that thing that said, hey, you haven't been on for a while.
I had to finish a lot of the whiskey on Saturday, so we don't have to move it. Anyway,
it did seem a little angry. I was
just random caps, not even all caps. Weird. Well, let's kick off the discussion today by talking about Yahoo and NBC Sports.
That's right. They got a partnership going. They announced it this morning. You're going to see the two pool their sports reporting, broadcast, and news coverage, and they're trying to have the U.S. largest dedicated sports news platform. That's their nice PR speak. It's going to combine Yahoo Sports reporting with NBC Sports Group's digital brand. So you're going to have a lot of cross-promotion there. Yahoo says that its most popular sports products are going to be in NBC's online presence. So original video programming, there's going to be live streaming from Yahoo of Sunday Night Football and NHL Game of the Week.
Okay, so that's the first thing you've said that makes sense.
That's the most important thing so far for me. But I think this is even bigger than that. Yahoo Sports becomes the exclusive fantasy game provider of NBC Sports RotoWorld. So Yahoo Sports fantasy goes into NBC there. I guess the real question is a partnership like this, and this is one of the larger partnerships since Marissa Meyer's taken over, is this a good move for Yahoo? I mean, it seems pretty obvious that it is. Jonathan, what do you think?
Yeah, this is, we've seen things like this before where a traditional media company partners with a new media company. And, these definitions kind of are vague, but I use that because really Yahoo's sort of a vague company in itself. But they do this in order to take advantage of each other's strengths rather than have to try and invest in building it all up on their own or competing in a space that they aren't traditionally in. And then from that perspective, it makes sense. It's also interesting to me that it sounds like the two news bullpens are going to be completely separate. So Yahoo is going to remain its own thing and NBC will remain its own thing, and they'll partner together and work together, but there's not going to be a deep integration. And that might actually be a good decision because both of these brands have built very strong identities when it comes to this weird thing called sports, of which I'm tangentially aware.
Well, it's similar to Yahoo's partnership with ABC News for news content, right? I mean, it's not a unified newsroom. ABC News still operates independently from Yahoo, but they pool a lot of their news coverage together, and it beefs up. In this case, it'll beef up NBC Sports online content because it can pull from the stuff that Yahoo's generating, gives Yahoo a bunch of video. That's all the stuff that Iyaz was talking at the beginning. Yes, make your NHL Game of the Week jokes right now because the NHL isn't playing because of a contract dispute. But they will get Yahoo some pretty compelling live streaming video at yahoo.com. It seems to me like the kind of thing that's just a win for both sides. I'm not sure what I get out of it as a consumer, except maybe if NBC wasn't planning on streaming Sunday Night Football previously.
They had been streaming it anyway. So it's kind of I think it's a little strange that NBC bothered to do this at all. Their sports division's pretty good. I don't know why they needed to go with Yahoo. Seems like more of a win for Yahoo because now they're going to have their brand all over NBC, and NBC pays a ton of money to get those sports rights, especially the NFL. What they did for that Sunday night game, they had to throw a ton of money at that. So I think it's just I don't really know what NBC's really getting out of this.
Well, you know what? Remember that NBC just removed itself from MSN.
That's right.
So I don't know this for sure, but I could guess that they might be looking at a shortfall in online stuff, so, that they used to get provided from the MSN sports reporters, and so Yahoo is filling that gap.
And also, keep in mind this could play an important role when NBC needs to present big events like the Olympics. Every time there's an Olympic event, there are what follows are news stories about how the internet should make the Olympics immediately accessible to anyone who has a connection. You shouldn't have to wait. And then there's the counter arguments that come out of that. And this last one, NBC was hit pretty hard with a couple of notable events. I think particularly the one that I always remember is the opening ceremonies and the delay in that. And also the fact that, in the United States, you were given very little choice in how you wanted to see those, like whether or not you wanted the commentary on. So I'm thinking maybe this could help with that as well and perhaps open up more options for people in certain markets that otherwise they'd have to find less legal ways of doing it.
Right. More streaming online, the better as far as I'm concerned. I'm with you there. Gabe Newell is the guy in charge of Valve, and he was speaking to Kotaku on the red carpet at the Video Game Awards on Friday and just decided to let slip that, our hardware will be a very controlled environment. Your hardware, Gabe, you say? Yeah, that's right. Apparently, all the rumors of Valve making a Steam box are probably true. He said to Kotaku, if you want more flexibility, you can always buy a more general-purpose PC. For people who want a more turnkey solution, that's what some people are really going to want for their living room. The nice thing about a PC is a lot of different people can try out different solutions. Customers can find ones that work for the best of them. So it sounds like, from this interview, that Valve is going to put together a sort of a locked-down box that's really meant just to run Steam. And likely would run Linux. He didn't say that, but that's what all the pointers have indicated. But that also Steam would be partnering with other manufacturers to make living room-friendly PCs, and maybe those would run Windows, that would come with Steam installed and be meant to be used in your living room. John, I mean, we've been waiting and waiting and waiting for the next generation of consoles. We just got the Wii U. We're probably going to hear about new Xboxes and PlayStations next year at E3. Is it good to see Valve jumping in with a PC at this time?
I think it's great. I mean, anytime you have real competition, that tends to work out great for the consumer. The gaming world is interesting because for the longest time, computer gamers have been kind of looking down their nose at some of the console gamers because the typical PC, gaming PC anyway, is so far ahead of what we currently have in the console world that it's almost a joke. So people have been, hooking their computers up to larger displays already. The Steam's big picture, that came out of beta, and people have been really rallying behind that as well. I like to see more competition, and I like the idea of this lockdown box in a way, because it's not like it's the only way you can get Steam playing on a big screen TV. You've already got the tools that you need to do that if you want to go about it your own way. But the lockdown box gives consumers who are not as computer savvy, who find the idea of having to install different drivers and having to figure out exactly what they need to make this work, they find that to be a barrier to entry. So I think that this is a smart move.
And if you're already using Steam, all the games that you play would conceivably be available to you, because that's the way Steam works. What's gonna matter is the price of this console, and I think it's gonna matter whether it runs Linux or not. Over the weekend, OMG Ubuntu noticed that Steam was adding Linux system requirements to some games. But Iyaz, that's gonna be the issue. If it is a Linux-based box, it won't run all the games.
Well, I'm also thinking if it's Linux-based, it could just be the way TiVo's Linux-based, where you never really see Linux under there. You can get into it, but it's this interface that is completely controlled. So I guess how open and can you install other things on this device? Because if it's just Steam and it's just a game console, and I know there are things available via Steam that, like, I think movies are on there now. But like, if you can't have other applications on there, I'm wondering what the appeal is, because
the appeal is what John was talking about. Somebody who just wants that turnkey thing, right? I don't want to think about it.
The game consoles have grown in their capabilities to the point where they're basically media boxes that play games. If this is just a game console, that seems a little strange. It seems like Valve would have to go into like lots of different parts of different industries.
I think that's where price plays into it, though, right? So if the Xbox is $399 and the Steam box is $199, suddenly the Steam box is like much more capable than a Wii U. And if you just want to play games and watch a few movies, there you go. And it would be able to probably have, it has a browser. Steam has a browser in it now in the big picture edition.
Yeah, I wouldn't jump to the conclusion that a Steam box could only play Steam games and maybe a couple of limited other features. I would just say that it wouldn't be up to the user to determine what the official Steam box, whatever it would be called, what it could and could not do. That would be up to Valve, really. And so you would get this game console, and it may have features comparable to the other consoles that are already on the market. It's just that you can't personally mix and match everything the way you could if it were a media gaming PC that you had built or bought and hooked up to your television.
Yeah, I still think the biggest issue is going to be game availability if it's Linux-based. Maybe it won't be Linux-based, but I know Gabe Newell doesn't like the fact that Windows doesn't allow you to remove that Windows App Store, even if you're an OEM, and that's a competitor to some kind of Steam box. Let's talk about Goldman Sachs estimating how much it would cost Google to roll out Google Fiber nationwide in the United States. $140 billion is what they estimate. Google has $45 billion in cash reserves, and their CapEx budget, which is how much they just spend on infrastructure, is $4.5 billion. So Goldman Sachs in their notes said, if Google devoted 25% of its $4.5 billion CapEx annual budget to this project, it would equip 830,000 homes per year, or 0.7% of U.S. households. So it would only take, a little over 100 years to reach everybody. Verizon stopped rolling out Fios, as you may recall, because of cost. They spent $15 billion to cover 17 million homes. Verizon's general counsel Randall Milch testified to Congress in March. Wall Street punished us for investing in Fios. So here's Google in Kansas City making a special effort, but Goldman Sachs is saying, it's a special effort, that's great, but it doesn't seem to be able to scale. You've got Verizon saying, like, nobody wants us to spend money rolling out fiber. John, is there any hope for rolling out fiber in the U.S.?
Not right now. I think we can't say for sure one way or the other necessarily, but infrastructure is a big deal. I mean, these are big problems, and we've seen this across multiple industries where we've got these great ideas that could solve huge issues we have in all these different areas of our lives, except it requires such a fundamental change to an infrastructure that already exists and is something we rely upon heavily, that the expense and the time are prohibitive. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what it would take to be able to roll out fiber nationwide unless it was a massive partnership among some really big players who don't traditionally work that well together, or if there was some sort of government mandated program.
Like in Australia, right?
Right. And when you're talking about government mandated program, there's a whole list of other problems that come in, particularly things like, well, where's that money coming from? And whether or not people are willing to think of their tax dollars being spent to roll out fiber, especially if their neighborhood isn't on the list of the first ones to get that fiber. If they're on the end of that list, you're just it's like, I'm paying for people in California to have faster internet access. So, I mean, there are a lot of issues. I don't think it's insurmountable. I just think it's going to take a lot of thinking and a lot of effort to get beyond them.
Like Jonathan's saying, it would require a bunch of companies working together that don't do this. When Verizon was doing it, you just got Verizon and that's it. If Google went out and covered the whole nation with this, I would imagine they would have to either get a huge government subsidy to do that, or that they were access to their fiber. So if they were making that another business, but that would require like basically making the fiber like a dumb pipe where it's assignable or sellable or rentable, I guess, from other carriers. It needs to be as easy as switching like phone companies a long time ago. You'd be like, oh, I want to change my company. You didn't have to change your wires. That was okay. That was for everybody. If the fiber was available and you could switch what company and provider you had while the infrastructure's there at the same time, then I think it's got a better chance. But until that happens,
who pays for it though? That's the problem, because what you're describing is what they have in Australia now, right? So how do you get that going? How do you get money for that?
Well, I think with Google actually, doing these experiments in these little towns or big towns, excuse me, I didn't mean to say anything about Kansas City. In these towns.
He's from New York. Give him a break.
Yes, give me a big break on that one. But with this experiment, to see what kind of economy builds around that, because this is a big city getting a lot of advantages that other places don't get. If it creates an economic upturn, then you could see other companies going.
But you still have to sink so much money, even if you see a big economic upturn. They can't. Like you say, it would take them 100 years at a quarter of their capex budget. That's
why you need the government subsidy on top.
I think Jonathan's right. You're gonna maybe not a government subsidy, but you're gonna have to have a team effort. There's going to have to be more than one entity.
Cooperation?
Yeah, I know. That sounds even... somebody's like, why don't they just roll out LTE? That's actually what Verizon has said. They're going to focus on LTE rather than fiber. But remember, the peak download rate of the top level of LTE, which is not even what they're rolling out right now, is only 300 megabits per second with upload of 75. Now, only, that sounds great, right? That's the peak. That's the most possible you can get from LTE. Fiber has, you can get a gigabit out of that. So I'd much rather have fiber if I can, but doesn't sound like I can. Not right now. Let's take a break and thank our sponsor, who can bring you something you can get right now, a fast and easy way to create a high-quality website or blog, or even an online portfolio. Squarespace gives you and your website users the best possible mobile experience. New templates, mobile-ready responsive design means your site automatically restructures to look great on any brand, smartphone, tablet, or computer. You don't have to think, oh, wait a minute, do I have a lot of mobile people coming? Maybe I should create a mobile version. You just create the content. You upload the images, Squarespace takes care of the hard work. They have a design that adapts and makes your site look right on whatever screen it's being looked at, and they automatically resize your image into 7 different versions so that it goes into the right template looking correct. Your site looks professionally designed no matter how it's used. And Squarespace is fast and easy to use. Beautiful templates, 100% drag and drop functionality, great social media integration, and like I said, just beautiful templates. You look professionally designed without having to know a thing about design. If you're like me, that's a really good thing. So go try it out for free. You don't have to give them a credit card or anything. Just go to squarespace.com, sign up for that free trial, and then if you do decide to keep it and purchase it, use this offer code TNT12 and get 10% off your first purchase on new accounts, including monthly and annual plans. That's squarespace.com. Use the offer code TNT12. Everything you need to create an exceptional website. And we thank Squarespace for their support of Tech News Today. So we mentioned briefly in the news to you about a little bit of Apple or Google patent speaking of cooperation.
Yeah, cooperation.
This sounds like an Onion headline.
This is the theme for today. Cooperation. This is Bloomberg reports that Apple and Google are working together to pick up Kodak's imaging patents. Kodak's obviously in bankruptcy, selling those digital image patents that they have. Bloomberg says the two are offering more than $500 million. They're citing people familiar with the situation, whoever they are. Apple was originally trying to buy the patents in conjunction with Microsoft and Intellectual Ventures. Google was working with Android phone manufacturers to get the patents, so they had two different consortiums. But now both groups are working together, so it would actually be Google, Apple, Microsoft, like all these companies would be throwing their money together.
There's even some, companies that are often called patent trolls by people in there, right?
like Intellectual Ventures, I believe they specialize in getting patents. They don't technically make anything other than owning. They're like a holding group. The patents for sale relate to capture, manipulation, and sharing of digital images. Kodak obviously was an innovator in a lot of that, and so since they're running out of business, they're selling their patents. So we got Apple and Google and probably Microsoft working together to get patents from Kodak. Is this the beginning of a patent peace, Tom? Do you think, or is this just, this is just a pipe dream?
It's not a pipe dream, but it's not the beginning of patent peace. This is business being done. Everybody wants to have those Kodak patents out of the courts, right? Because Kodak has been suing people over these patents. Kodak needs to sell these patents for a certain amount of money. I think it's what, $500 million?
Mm-hmm.
So the only way that they can sell the patents, and the only way that the companies who have a vested interest into not being sued over these patents can get everything they want, is to team up. And we've seen this before. The entire H.264 patent pool is a lot of people who are competitors who teamed up to say, okay, well, let's make sure that this is easy to use. I like that this is happening, but I don't think it harbors any reduction in other patent lawsuits when there is a single holder of a patent, sadly.
Jonathan, you don't think that these guys talking to each other, putting money together, pooling their money and resources is not going to have like a giant group hug effect?
Not at all. No, listen, here's what's going down. You got these patents. Whoever holds the patents holds the power. It's kind of like the spice, right? So you've got a bunch of different groups all interested in this. Google has been burned before, going in for patents and then getting outbid by a consortium. So it makes more sense to get together with your potential competitors and all pool your resources for two reasons. One, it means that you're not going to be out on the outskirts again and have someone else scoop that auction, snipe it at the last minute for you eBay fans. Or it also means that you don't spend as much of your own money buying these patents because you are pooling resources with other companies. So you're spending less money to get access to patents, which ultimately are really there. The reason why you're going after them is for protection, not necessarily to use them to sue other people, but so that you yourself don't get sued for using techniques that are related to the patents that are in this big package. It's funny because the patents that Kodak had at one point, I think they were valued at a few $1 billion, but Kodak actually licensed out those patents to so many licensees, it devalued those patents for anyone who wants to come in and buy them, because you've already got people or companies out there who have the licenses to them. You can't go after them because they legally are using that information with the license. You can't necessarily issue more licenses because you've already done, Kodak's already done that. So it's an interesting situation. I don't think it's at all indicative that it's going to be a bright, happy, fuzzy world tomorrow, and we're going to wake up to little birds singing in our ears, unless that just happens to you anyway.
Yeah, right. The patents must flow is what you're saying.
Yes.
All right. Last week, NBC News reported Defense Distributed, they're the folks behind the Wiki Weapon project, had fired 6 rounds successfully from a firearm with a plastic lower receiver made from a 3D printer. This was not a Wiki Weapon design, though. It was actually a design from Howell. Howell claimed that he'd fired 100 rounds from it. Unfortunately, they were only able to get 6 rounds before the plastic broke. Now, Representative Steve Israel of New York has called for renewal of the Undetectable Firearms Act of 2003, which is set to expire next year, 2013. It bans plastic firearms, among other things, because the idea is you don't want undetectable firearms going into airports and places like that. A lot of people are banning this as Congressman calling for a ban on 3D printed guns, which is definitely his provocation to calling for renewal of this law. But what happens, John? I mean, there are printers that can do metal, right? And
Sure.
isn't it whenever you talk about gun control, this isn't even a metaphor in this case because we're actually talking about guns. When plastic weapons are outlawed, only outlaws will have plastic weapons.
Well, in the United States, we got the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearm Agency, and right now in the U.S., it is legal for you to build your own gun as long as it meets certain parameters. You cannot build something that is called an NFA firearm. That's the National Firearms Act. That was a series of laws passed in the 30s to battle gangsters. Because you had all these Tommy guns and sawed-off shotguns that were considered by the police to be a bad thing, but they didn't want to end up doing a blanket statement saying that people could not make their own guns if they so wanted. So they put some restrictions on it, but it's still legal in the United States to build certain types of firearms. And I would imagine that unless they go and repeal those laws or change them in some other way, that once we get to the point where we have metal 3D printers, you're going to have a lot of resistance to that because traditionally it has been totally legal for us to make our own guns if we want to.
Just much more difficult than it will be potentially with 3D printers.
Yeah, well,
I think the main issue. I'm sorry, Iyaz, you were going to say something.
I was just going to compare this to when printers came out, original ones. Counterfeiting is still illegal, right? It's not that we can't try to do it and you can't possibly, somebody's going to be in your house stopping you from making a copy of it, but it's illegal to have counterfeit money or to make counterfeit money. So if this is illegal to make one, it just means that if you get caught, there's something to well, it's not sue you against, but to hold you accountable.
Charge you with,
Thank you. For a criminal charge. You have to have some kind of rule because otherwise you can't be like, oh, well, there was no law about that. Well, guess what happens? You get away scot-free about having this undetectable weapon. But on top of that, though, I would imagine that this would just be an impetus for, I guess, detection agencies to figure out, okay, if this is going to be a plastic weapon or some other undetectable, what is the element that we have to be looking for? So it will just change other technologies at the same time.
Well, the other interesting thing to me is that the way the United States law states that you cannot sell or distribute any weapons that you make as, just a regular citizen. Obviously, this doesn't apply to gun manufacturers, but if you were to make a gun, you would not be allowed to sell or distribute that. I'm wondering if they're going to have to look into the idea of gun plans, because once 3D printers become a thing, and presuming that the price of a 3D printer goes down low enough so that perhaps maybe not the average citizen, but affluent ones might be able to get the metal 3D printers, then what do you do about sending documents back and forth that are essentially the 3D plans for a gun? Is that the same thing as building a gun yourself and then distributing the gun? Since really all you're talking about is someone who has access to the printer and raw materials. Or is that in fact something totally different? To me, the whole 3D printer issue has really brought some fascinating problems up as far as intellectual property and other related laws are concerned.
Yeah, and I think that's much more interesting. What's going on here is Steve Israel, for whatever reason, wants to get this Undetectable Firearms Act renewed when it's set to expire in 2013. And frankly, we're moving past the need, this is just my opinion, but I think we're moving past the need for that kind of law. What are they putting in? Backscatter scanners. They're not metal detectors. And the argument is they want to go after undetectable firearms, undetectable weapons, things that aren't metal. So this is just a backwards-looking law. And using 3D printers as an excuse seems fatuous to me. I think what Jonathan's talking about is much more interesting, is what are the debates going to be about what you can do with your 3D printer, what's legal and what's not going forward. Well, let's finish up with an Appy story. It's a Appy holidays coming, according to Ken Ray.
Yeah, so there's a couple things going on with Apple TV. First is actual news about Apple Television. There's a beta of the iOS for Apple TV out there, and it actually enables Bluetooth in the 2nd gen and 3rd gen Apple TVs. Apparently, there's been Bluetooth in there the whole time, just off. So they're going to turn that on, apparently, in the future.
Keyboards.
Only works with keyboards right now. It did not work with speakers, a mouse, or other Macs. It can't detect those. But back to the app story, macOS Ken is reporting that a holiday app category appeared on the Apple Television. That's right now, not in the beta. If you select the banner for snow sports or holiday cooking apps, it doesn't go anywhere. And you can actually, it was still available earlier this morning under movies, genres, classics, holiday music, movies, and more. So there's this, it appears to be this app section that could be coming to Apple TV, Jonathan, do you think Apple's going to open up Apple TV to apps and games this holiday season, or is this just a screwball mix-up in the iTunes store?
A screwball mix-up?
Sure, why not?
Hilarious hijinks.
Yeah, this is the cannonball run of Apple TV. No, I think, I think this. It's hard to say. I'm guessing it's more of a mix-up than anything else. It just sounded to me like it was something where things that were supposed to display on iOS devices but not display on Apple TV was overlooked. But that's just a guess. There's nothing stopping them from doing this and putting apps available on the Apple TV on a much wider platform than they had before. But it would surprise me a little bit. I would like to see, if they do that, I would like to see how successful or unsuccessful it is. I'm curious to see how people adopt more computer functionality on their televisions. I know we've been seeing a gradual evolution over time, but these capabilities for things like running apps on TVs, those have been around in some form or another for several years, and adoption has been terrible. So, but if anyone can change that, I would say it's Apple.
I look at this and I think, okay, it's a mistake. Right at the very beginning, this is a mistake one way or another, because if you click on it, nothing happens. So if it's a mistake, what kind of mistake is it? I think it's perfectly possible that it's the kind of mistake where apps are coming to Apple TV, and this was a section being prepared that went live by accident. I think it's also equally possible, or at least close to equally possible, that there is a unified content publishing system at Apple for the iTunes store that can push to Apple TV and iTunes and the iPad, and somebody pushed images to the wrong place. I used to run the CNET homepage. I know how easy it is for the wrong image and links to show up in a flash carousel-like situation like we're looking at Apple TV. So I don't know what to make of this. I would love to think that apps are coming to the Apple TV. I would be very excited about that. But I don't think this is definitive one way or another.
Yeah, I mean, Apple's been flirting with the idea of putting apps on there. You've seen Hulu Plus got added a while ago, and then every now and then, like when the presidential election was going on, there was a special button that would show up. iTunes festivals, things that just keep popping up on Apple TV whenever. So it wouldn't be surprising to me that they're going, you know what, we have these things sitting around. We might as well just make them live if you want to install them. And I'm sure once this keyboard functionality works, maybe you can search a lot easier on an Apple TV for an application.
Yeah, I think it might end up just being somebody pushed the wrong button and a set of slides got published accidentally that shouldn't have been there, and maybe nothing more than that. We will get Bluetooth, though. That's in the developer beta, so that's real. Let's move on to the randomizer.
Randomizer.
Researchers at the Center of Microsystems Technology at Ghent University have developed a prototype lens for your eye, contact lens, with an embedded spherical curved LCD screen that isn't limited to just a few pixels. In fact, it can display a $ that is visible to someone looking at your eye.
Prophetic.
Unfortunately, yeah, this is going to be for bling, right? You can't see the $ if you're wearing the contact lens because they have focusing issues. What they do say is that they're going to work on those focusing issues at close range and hopefully be able to make this so it could deliver a heads-up display. I suppose there's decorative uses that could be done here. They also talk about medical purposes like controlling light transmission to the retina if your iris is damaged. John, what do you make of this?
Tom, you suppose there are decorative functions? Let me explain to you the beauty of these contact lenses. Now, the Japanese have come out with the mood ears and even the mood tail that shows you what your mood is. But these contact lenses could be even better. Imagine you see something you want, you feel a little greedy, boom, $ pop up in your eyes. A pretty person walks by, your heart flutters, boom, hearts in your eyes.
Bug out eyes.
Bug out eyes.
Oh, this is from the Tex Avery division of Ghent, is it?
You've had one too many whiskeys on Whiskey Friday? X's over your eyes. Perfect. It's obvious as far as I'm concerned. As far the medical things, that's cool too. The reason why I like this story was that, well, I wanted to make a joke, but also I'm genuinely curious how they are thinking about getting beyond the focus problem, because when something is in contact with your eye, focusing on that is just not something we are really able to do. It's not in our makeup, it's not something that evolution has designed us to do. So how we get around that is something that's really interesting to me. I'm very curious to find out what the next step is, if in fact they can find a workable way of displaying this information in a way that's meaningful to us.
Literally $signs in their eyes at the University of Ghent. Just saying. Let's take a quick break and thank our sponsor, one of the sponsors that helps put $signs in our eyes. Whether at home or the office, printing from your iPhone or iPad can be a pain. If you've got an AirPrint printer, you're probably like, well, it's not a pain. I just press print on my iOS device and it prints. But who has AirPrint printers? Some of you, but not most of you. You're like, well, I've already got it. If you're like me, you're like, I've already got a printer. I'd like to be able to. It's a Wi-Fi printer. It's a network printer. I'd like to be, it doesn't even have to be a network printer. Lantronix X-Print Server enables wireless printing from your iPad, iPhone, or iPod Touch, eliminating the need to print through apps, install software, or email yourself documents for printing. And it works with a USB printer or a network printer that you already own. In fact, it makes your USB printer become a network printer. You can print directly from the iOS native menu. You don't have to install any software. You don't have to buy any apps, and supports more than 4,000 top brand network printers, and incredibly easy to use. Automatic discovery and setup of the printer worked for me. Networking things never work for me. This worked the first time I plugged it in. Your home edition is $99. That supports up to 8 USB and 2 network printers, probably more than you need. The Office Edition, though, if you do have a bunch of printers, is $199, supports up to 8 USB and unlimited network printers. And it allows your USB printers to be shared with users all over the network. It's great for your home, great for your office, even works with large multifunction printers. That's what I have. I have a multifunction printer. So go to xprintserver.com/twit for more information and to buy. We've got a special offer for the month of December. Use the code HOLIDAY2012 to receive 20% off on your order. Remember, visit xprintserver.com/twit, and at checkout, enter the code HOLIDAY2012, and we thank Lantronix for their support of Tech News Today. Happy holidays. Let's look at the calendar, Sarah. Oh, Sarah's gone all week. What are we going to do? Why are you showing Iyaz?
Why don't you do it?
Okay, I'll do it. Today at 1815, Ada Byron was born in London, England, to the poet Lord Byron and Anne Isabel Milbank. You can tell Sarah's not doing the calendar already, can't you? She would later marry William King, that is Ada Byron, not Sarah, and take on his title as Lady Lovelace. But she is best remembered as Charles Babbage's friend and writer of the first program for his difference engine, and she is considered by many to be the first computer programmer. So happy 197th birthday, Lady Lovelace. Lovelace. Not Loveless. A lot of love for that
lady. The Enchantress of Numbers.
Exactly.
That was her poetic name.
Submissions for Ofcom's UK 4G auction are due tomorrow, December 11th. Samsung's hinting it's announcing something new at CES in January. Everybody thinks it's the Galaxy S4. I think it's like, well, they're going to be at CES. Everybody announces something new at CES. What's the big deal? Sony's going to discontinue production in early 2013 of cassette players and recorders in the United States. You'll still be able to get a tape player if you buy the CD boombox that has a tape player built into it, but you won't be able to buy standalone cassette players anymore. And the National Highway Transportation and Safety Administration wants black boxes in every new car by September of 2014, so they can tell what happened right before a crash. That's a look at the calendar. Let's see what's incoming.
Incoming message.
Got an email from Sam the pilot, who says that the FCC is overstepping the bounds of its authority. Now, FCC just sent a letter to the FAA. I don't think that oversteps the bounds of their authority. They get to send letters and have an opinion. But here's what Sam says. The no electronic ban is only on takeoff and landings, 2 critical phases of flight that require the utmost attention and the least amount of interference, both carbon-based and silicon-based. He's talking about people. During these 2 phases of flight, the airlines practice a sterile cockpit environment where no conversations can be conducted except where it pertains to flight operations. No talking about hotels, taxis, nightclubs. The last thing you need is a stray signal coming from 100-plus electronic devices messing up the sensors and computers. A handful of devices could be dealt with, but a cabin full of electronic devices? Also, the takeoff landings are where most of the air traffic comes together in close proximity and high density to one another. Birds, planes, helicopters, buildings, bridges. Cruise flight is where the airspace is more open, and it is not as critical. And that's the time to relax and have coffee. So Sam's saying, the fact that people leave their phones and electronic devices off right now does not mean that we want to encourage more people to do it. And he's a pilot, so that's the pilot's perspective on that.
Got an email from Brian. On Friday, you were talking about T-Mobile value plans and how they're less predictable income for T-Mobile. However, the value plans do have a 2-year contract with an ETF. Only their month-to-month plans have no contract, and they cost much more money for the same minutes/data as the value plan.
All right. Yeah, we got that wrong on Friday, and a bunch of people called us on it on Twitter and email. So, yes, our fault for not having all the facts when we were discussing that. I still think most of the things we were discussing, the impacts of the plan are probably still there, but you do have to sign that contract, so that changes things, at least from my perspective. That is it for this episode of Tech News Today. John Strickland, thank you so much for joining us.
It was a pleasure. I really had a great time. Thanks so much.
Let folks know what you're up to over there at howstuffworks.com.
Oh, sure. Well, right now we're planning some pretty major, awesome things for tech stuff that I can't really talk about. But guys, you need to tune in January. Check in on tech stuff. If you haven't listened before, it's a great time to get started. If you're an old fan, I can't say enough about the exciting things because they won't allow me to.
Does it involve robots?
Maybe.
Artificial intelligence?
Georgia Tech is right around the corner, and they've got this cool robot thing that I get to see on Wednesday. So robots may play a part.
All right. I'm intrigued. HowStuffWorks.com and the Tech Stuff Podcast. Go subscribe. That's it for us. You can submit, vote, and read the stories that other people in the audience are interested in at technewstoday.reddit.com. Vote for your favorite stories. Open mic submissions are opening. We are always doing every year special editions for that last week of December when we're not in the studio. And one of them is open mic, where we have people like Father Robert Ballister, who's sitting right over there. It was on our open mic episode. Now he hosts This Week in Enterprise Tech. Your mileage may vary on whether you're on it, but if you'd like to be on the show, email TNT@twit.tv and use the subject line Open Mic 2012. Let us know who you are, what you do, and why you would like to take part. That's it. You can find us on the web, twit.tv/TNT. You can email us, TNT@twit.tv, and you can give us a call, leave us a voicemail, 260-TNT-SHOW. Lloyd Case joins us tomorrow. Sarah Lane's out all week. We'll see you tomorrow.
I just looked
I
up.
should have put the wig back on for the end.
Yeah. There's Sarah now. Oh, my gosh.